What's happening across Africa. And Georgia Calvin-Smith joins me here in the studio. Hello, Georgia. We're going to start with the news that thousands of people have been gathering in Cairo in a show of support for Mohamed Morsi, the Egyptian president.
Yes. Now, this all comes as there is growing pressure from opposition groups who say that Morsi and the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood are power mongers and are excluding secular groups. Now, there's been some pretty inflammatory rhetoric flying around between the two sides in the run-up to the first anniversary of Morsi's presidency. That is on June the 30th. Well, today, France 24's Ashraf Khalil has been at those rallies in Cairo. He joins us now from the Egyptian capital. Ashraf, so is this all a spontaneous show of support for Morsi?
Well, I wouldn't use the word spontaneous. It's certainly sincere, but like everything from the Muslim Brotherhood, this is heavily planned and heavily organized. A healthy percentage of the protesters, and they did get a huge number today, but the area was ringed by dozens of buses from different governorates. They brought people from all across the country to boost numbers, which is a Brotherhood calling card. So spontaneous, no, but definitely sincere. These are people who want Morsi to stay, who feel that present his legitimacy, that their numbers and their support, that he is legitimate president.
Now, on the other side, we have the opposition. They're planning a show of force on June the 30th. Now, the U.S. ambassador seems to have gotten into some hot water by saying that she doesn't think that the protests would get anyone very far.
Yes, the U.S. ambassador made comments along those lines, and there was a fierce reaction from the opposition. One opposition leader basically told her in verbatim to shut up and stay out of Egypt's business. This is something that is the culmination of what's been building for a couple of months, in that there's been this feeling among the opposition that the U.S. is necessarily on the Brotherhood side, but the U.S. wants stability, and that basically the theory here is that Washington made a deal with the Brotherhood that if they don't give any problems to Israel, Washington will leave them alone. We have no proof for that. It's a lot of speculation, and it's a bit of paranoia. But the opposition, among the opposition, there is a real angry streak. Anger at the Brotherhood and Morsi, and also at the U.S.
Okay, so Morsi's clearly got both fierce fans and critics. Overall, though, what is the consensus of his leadership in the run-up to his first anniversary?
Well, it's an open question. How the issue of Morsi's performance review as he approaches his one-year anniversary depends entirely on who you ask in this heavily polarized environment. His supporters, those who were out on the streets today, and the members of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Freedom and Justice Party acknowledge, they triumph for his achievements in some areas, but they argue that their hands have been tied. They say that the opposition, they say that remnants of the Mubarak regime within the judiciary have tied their hands. So they're arguing that they haven't gotten a fair shake. The opposition basically says he's accomplished nothing, and they add to that, the primary opposition argument and what's going to be fueling these protests on June 30th is they believe that he sacrificed or gave up his legitimate right to be the president when he took on extra powers, when he pushed through the Constitution. The entire way that the Constitution was handled, in the eyes of the opposition, disqualifies him as a legitimate leader. And so that's what June 30th represents to the opposition, is the beginning of a push among many opposition people. See this as the beginning of a campaign to oust him from office.
Ashraf Khalil there for us in Cairo. Okay, now, in Tunisia, the appeal trial of 3 feminist activists who launched a topless protest in Tunis has been adjourned. The trio, 2 French and 1 German, are members of the Femen movement and were sentenced earlier this month to 4 months in jail for indecency and attacking public morals. Their manner of protest has attracted little public sympathy. Before scheduling the next hearing for June 26th, the judge rejected the group's parole request. Now, having struck a peace deal with Tuareg separatists earlier this week, Mali's government is now moving forward with preparations for next month's elections. The Ouagadougou Accord, settled between Bamako and the MNLA rebels, means that the army can now re-enter the Tuareg-held city of Kidal for the polls. But Tuareg's influence in the north goes well beyond the regional capital, and the deal may not be enough to change that. Our correspondents sent us this report.
Every morning, French troops leave their base to go to Tessalit, 6 kilometers away. Tuaregs live in this oasis in the middle of the desert. Tessalit, like Kidal and other towns in the region, is occupied by the MNLA Tuareg rebels. They've hoisted the flag of Azawad, the name they give to northern Mali. Armed men patrol the main street, while youngsters are told to chant the name Azawad.
Those who don't want to hear of Azawad, we send them back to Mali immediately. They take their bags and they leave.
We ask the MNLA what they think about the presence of French troops.
The French army and the MNLA forces work together. It's always been like that. We share information.
But in fact, on the ground, the French army works with the MNLA's worst enemy, Tuaregs who fight in the Malian army. This is how the French describe their relationship with the MNLA.
There is absolutely no coordination with them. But when we see them, we don't look the other way.
The agreement signed this week between the MNLA and Bamako states that the Malian army can return in the areas held by the rebels before next month's presidential election. Many fear this will be a complicated operation, as tensions remain high in the region between the two forces.
Okay, now this week, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb confirmed the death of one of its leaders. Abdallah al-Shankiti was the first Mauritanian commander in the jihadist group and was killed in fighting in northern Mali. Our reporters have been out to Mauritania to meet the family he left behind.
Here's the latest video of Mohammed Al-Amin Ould Al-Hassan, best known as Abdallah Al-Shankiti, commander of the Al-Furqan Katiba, affiliated with Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. We were on the road to the town of Freya, where the family of Al-Shankiti lives. Al-Qaeda announced his death just a few days ago. It's been 7 years now since Al-Shankiti joined the organization.
It was the end of the year 2006. December 2006. We left Nouakchott. He told us he was going on a pilgrimage to Mecca.
Al-Wadi'a, the village mosque. Before joining the ranks of Al-Qaeda, Shankiti pronounced his sermons there, urging his fellow Muslims to take part in the jihad. The mother of Al-Shankiti was able to talk to him one last time briefly on the phone, on the third day of the French military intervention in Mali.
The last contact we had with him was the day France announced it had killed 60 people in Gao. I called him to be sure he was safe, but I did not let him talk to me. I said my last goodbye to him.
With the death of Al-Shankiti in the fighting that took place in northern Mali, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb lost one of its finest strategists in the region, and no one has yet been officially appointed to replace him.
Police in Mozambique have blamed the gunning down of 2 people on Friday in a series of attacks on an opposition party formed by former civil war rebels. The victims were killed as vehicles were fired upon on roads in central Sofala province. Now, the attacks came just hours after leaders in the Renamo party vowed to block main roads and cripple crucial rail links to coalfields. Talks between the government and Renamo have recently failed. It's demanding more representation in the army. The spokesman from the group has said that he did not have enough information to confirm or deny the allegations of responsibility for the attacks. To Uganda now, where the mayor of the capital claims to have been beaten by police as they shut down a rally in Kampala. Elias Lukwago says that he collapsed after tear gas was thrown at his car before he was then arrested. The opposition member and critic of President Yoweri Museveni was then admitted into hospital after a scuffle broke out between his supporters and police. Critics of the government accuse the president of becoming increasingly autocratic. Now, on Friday, the president of the Comoros Islands met with French President François Hollande here in Paris. The thorny issue between the two nations was, and apparently remains, the future of the French Overseas Department of Mayotte. Nicolas Jumat tells us more.
Before he met François Hollande, advisors of the Comoros president said the main issue on the agenda would be the status of Mayotte. It's an island administered by France but claimed by the Comoros. After the encounter at the Élysée Palace, it appeared the two leaders did not make any progress on the topic. The Comoros president refused to speak to the press. His deputy only said a few words.
We didn't talk about this specifically, but we talked about the 4 Comoros Islands.
François Hollande wasn't much more talkative.
You know the positions of both sides. We prefer discussing our declaration of friendship.
The French presence on this island, where most residents are Muslim, is regularly criticised by the UN, the African Union and the Arab League. But in the last referendum in 2009, 95% of voters said they wanted Mayotte to be French. Every year, several thousand people from the Comoros try to arrive illegally in Mayotte to find a job or a decent hospital. But hundreds of them don't make it and die at sea. In all, Mayotte has about 200,000 inhabitants, and it's estimated 40% of them are illegal immigrants.
Okay, that's it from me, but I will be back in an hour with more top headlines from across the continent.
Thank you very much indeed, Georgia Calvin-Smith. And thank you to you for watching. My colleague Cyril Vanier will be taking over from me in just a moment. He'll have the news at the top of the hour, just 3 minutes from now. Do stay tuned to France 24.